What if I told you that sometimes, the lines between crime and justice get blurred in the most unexpected ways? Picture this. A once powerful prosecutor finds himself behind bars, stripped of everything he knew, except one thing: his thirst for revenge. This is the story of a violent prosecutor, a 2016 South Korean crime comedy film that takes us on a wild ride through betrayal, corruption, and unlikely alliances. In the beginning of the movie, the vans are going through a construction site. Then in the next scene, a man was shouting on a mic on the site. They were on a strike. Then the three vans stopped and some man came out. Then the boss came and talked to them. They were having a conversation to get in the strike and start fighting with the police team. One of them was wearing a mask. He went out of the van and started to walk forward in the crowd of the strike. Then the boss called him. Then another guy was taking inhaler. The one who was wearing a mask name was Han. Then they all ran into the crowd and started to fight with the police team. The man who was shouting in the mic was shocked. One of the van members killed a policeman. But Han didn't fight with the police team. He came out of the crowd and ran. Then he stopped and took off his mask. Then he picked his phone and took a selfie. Then again ran away. In the next scene, we see in the news channel that the workers were arrested for the crime. In the next scene, in the police station, they were investigating the incident. The head of the police department was scolding a senior officer. But then the officer laughed at him. Then the head of the department took the files and gave them to other officers. Then he talked to the senior officer. He was laughing and talking with the head of the department. Then the head of the department was listening to the officer. But he got pissed off and slapped the officer. Then the officer got angry. Then he stood up. The head of the department holds his collar and slapped him again. But then the officer laughed again. The head of the department slapped him again and again. The senior officer's name was Jang, and the department head name was Byung. After that, in the next scene, a man was talking to another man on his phone. His name was Jong. Then in the next scene, the police officers were having a party. There were other office colleagues too. His name was Chol-gu. He was the boss of the police department. An office worker came to serve a drink to Chol-gu. Then Chol-gu was talking to the office colleagues and enjoying his time. Then a man lights a cigarette. His name was Young Chol. Then he started to talk with Byung. Young Chol was lecturing Byung for the incident. Then Byung talks to Young Chol with anger. Then Young Chol slapped the table. Then scene changes and Byung went to the station and investigate one of the workers. The one who has inhaler, he was asking questions to him. They two were sitting in the custody room. In there, Byung talked with the worker. But the worker was rude. Then Byung stood up and went close to the worker. Then asked again that who sent them. Then Byung grabbed the worker's hair and took him to the walls. They asked him and slapped him. Then Byung grabbed him and pulled down his shirt and saw the tattoos with the lamp. Then scene changes and we see Byung was sleeping on the couch. Then Chol-gu's waked him up and told him it's office hour. Then he fresh himself up and grabbed his breakfast. Then he went to the custody of that tattooed worker. There he sees that the worker has no response. Then he calls the other guy. But in that time the worker was already dead. Then Byung got arrested. The news reporter was asking him how this happened. But he was silent. Everyone around the country was watching the news. Then police team sat on a press conference. He was held to the court. Then he was proved guilty and took him to the prison. The prisoners were laughing at him. Then he went to his cell. Then in the next scene, Jong-gil was going somewhere in his car. The driver gave him a phone. Then the driver stops the car on the bridge. Then Jong-gil throw that phone in the river. In the next scene, Byung saw other prisoners were also in his cell. Then one of the prisoners hold his collar and talked with him. The prisoners were teasing and raging him. Then he behaved like a rude person, so the prisoners started to beat him. Then when the prison guard came, they stopped hitting him. In the next scene, he was exercising with other prisoners. Then his cell prisoners came and took him to a room and beat him again. Then in the next scene, he was working with a sewing machine. Suddenly he got himself hurt by the pin of the sewing machine. After that, everyone was cleaning the room. Then he saw the news. Then he wrote something on a paper and inserted in his pillow. Then he lay down to sleep. In the next scene, he was behind the bars and he talked to Young Chol face to face about the incident. Then again in the court, the judge declared that he was guilty. So, he stood up and told Young Chol that he was innocent. He didn't kill the worker. Then he ran behind Young Chol. But the guards stopped him and grabbed him to the ground. Then again in his cell, he was thinking about the fake reports of his guilty. Then in the next scene, the jailer was talking to Young Chol. Then a guard came and took him to the place where the jailer wanted to talk with him. Then the jailer talked to Byung. The jailer was talking about the things he wrote in the papers and told him that it is no use of the writings. Then in the next scene, Byung and other prisoners were hanging the cloths to dry. Then two guards called them and talked to them about their problems. But only two guys shared. Han was ignored. Then another one told his problems, but everyone laughed. Then he looked down. Then the guards told them to keep doing what they were told to. Then Byung went to the two guards and talked to them. Then the guards took him to their cabinet, then gave him food to eat and asked him about the prison. Then he told the guards about the bad guys who had beaten him for day by day. Then the guards took team and went to the bad guy's cell. Then the guards took the head of the bad guys and hit him so hard. Then Byung continues his cleaning. After that, in the next scene we seen new prisoners were arriving. One of them was sleeping in the bus. Then all the prisoners came down from the bus. The old prisoner again laughed at them. One of the new prisoners' names was Han. Then Han looked around and went in the prison. Then in the next scene Han's wife came to visit and talk with him. They talked to each other. Then they argued with each other. Then in the next scene he went to meet his friends inside the prison. Then three guys came and saw Byung was playing. He asked Byung that has something to tell him. Then Byung stood up and walked with him. Han and his friend were talking about Byung and how he freed the prison from the bullies. Then in the workshop Byung and other prisoners were working. Then the jailer came, so everyone bowed to the jailer. He went close to Byung and talked with him. He asked Byung how was the work going. Byung replied that it was good. Then the jailer gave Byung the newspapers full of cigarettes and took Byung and left the place. Then in the next scene everyone was smoking in the dining room. There Han came and met his friends and shake hands with others. Then he started to gossip with his friend, but Byung recognized Han's voice and went close to him and held his collar and asked him about the incident. But Han replied that he wasn't there and he didn't know anything. Then he left the place. Then in the next scene Han was talking to his lawyer. Then suddenly Byung came and talked with Han's lawyer about Han's case. Then scene changes and Han was taken to Byung's cell. Then Han went inside and then Byung offered Han some food. And he wanted to talk about the incident. The incident was Byung's case. Then they started talking. In the next scene we see that Han was telling about the construction site, that what they were told to do and what happened there. Then Byung and Han made a team and started to make a plan to destroy Jong-gil. Then in the next scene Jang was talking on the phone and laughing. His officers were counting money. Han was practicing the sign of the precedent. Because the precedent, Jang and others faked Byung's guiltiness. Then Han showed Byung the sign he copied. Then in the next scene Byung and others were drying the cloths. Then Han came with some eggs, and then gave an egg to Byung. Then Byung took the basket and told another prisoner to distribute the eggs. Then Han and Byung sat and enjoyed their eggs. The next day Han was declared as he was not guilty and won his case. He got released from the prison. Then he came to Byung and told him everything about the court judgment. Then Byung gave him a paper where everything was written. Then in the next scene Han was enjoying his meal of freedom with his friends. There he got all the information from his friend. Then he sends it inside the prison for Byung. In the prison Byung was planning everything part by part. Then in the next scene the mayor got a disc of audio. He plays it and listened to it. The bad guys were partying for their success. Then in the next scene Jang was beating his officers in his office. Then Jong-gil came to Jang's office. There Jong-gil beats Jang. Then in the next scene Jang beats a man for no reason. Then he had a phone call from Jong-gil and they talked for a while. Then in the next scene Young Chol came to visit and talk with Byung. He threatens him, but Byung didn't scared of his threat. Then in the next scene Han saw his friend in the hospital. Then he knew that Jang was beating his friend. Then he left some money and went to eat something. Then he went to his wife's house to talk to her parents. After that Han and his wife was going somewhere in with his wife's car, but in front of their car a car was parked. So, he comes out and knocked the door to the car. Then the driver opens his car door and Han gets hurt in his legs. Then that man beats him. Then he went to the prison to talk with Byung. Then Byung comes and they had a conversation. Then next day Han went to the bad guy's opening ceremony. There he liked a girl and went to make out with her. Then he sleeps with the girl. Then when the girl fell asleep, he went to take pictures of the registry book. The girl was the assistant of the mayor. Then one by one all the bad guys were falling apart. Then the president ordered to check every cell and burn everything. So, everything was destroyed. Then Han comes to visit Byung. Byung tells him everything what happened inside the prison. Then Han promises Byung that he will do everything to set Byung free. Then Han goes to the bank and draws a lot of money. In the next scene Han goes to the mayor party and talked with him. Then he makes a fake ID card to go inside the bad guy's office. Then he signs a paperwork, then leaves the office. Then he goes to his hotel and sees that there are peoples looking for him, so he disguises like them and leaves the place. In that time the mayor was already drowned, but Han was caught by Jang. Jang was going to kill him, but their police came and caught the bad guys and Han too. The police took Han into custody. There Han tells them about everything. Then in the next scene the jailer comes to Byung's cell and wakes him up. Then he tells him that the guys died that day which you were blamed for was caught. Then the next day Byung was held to the court. There Han showed the photos he took on the workers' strike. Then the judge gave his judgment and freed Byung. Then the next day Byung got freed from the prison. Han was waiting for Byung outside the prison. Byung gave Han a gift, and here the movie ends.